Howdy, dog world. Dave the Dog Man here, and I am here with my good friend Steve Cullen. How are you today, Steve?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing well. Thanks for joining me today. Steve is a fellow dog trainer that I had the privilege, that's a word today, privilege and honor to work with back in, we were talking earlier, 2015, 2016.
Right.
Um, I've been working with the Humane Society of Oldham County Camp Canine program actually since 2009. Steve was part of that program from that 2015 to 2016 when you went somewhere else, and then you trained dogs there for a couple years. So total,
Yeah.
you have 6 years of dog training, right?
Yeah.
All right, and then a year and a half with me having fun at Camp Canine.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Steve, why don't you give us a little background other than that training background? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you really like about dog training, anything else that comes up.
Well, dog training is my passion. It helped create a better me today. I know that, and it's given me a lot of drive to make a better future for myself as well, and to be able to give back to the community if possible, and to help change some lives as well, just like you.
Awesome, my friend. So we were talking a little bit. Thank you, Steve. We were talking about this earlier, just kind of our mission while we're working with dogs. And my mission, it's taken me a long time to whittle it down to this, but over the past 19 years, what I keep coming back to is transforming lives with the power of the dog. And so it's anything from a family that I can impact with a dog that's chewing up their shoes to service dogs with wounded veterans, first responders, children with different challenges, adults with challenges, therapy dogs in hospitals and in counseling sessions. And you've actually helped me all along that path with home obedience, therapy, service dogs. So, if you could tell us a little bit about what your mission focus is, and maybe a story or two about your parrot Chewini, and and that service dog that you helped me with a couple years back. So,
Right. So surprisingly, I used to be afraid of dogs.
oh,
And yeah, I was chased by some dogs when I was a little kid, and I ended up getting a scar on my head from it. I fell down, and so
oh
yeah,
wow,
I had to overcome a fear of that too. But the dogs, people would like. I called it. We had a term for it called, and I hate to say it, they would call them throwaway dogs,
mm,
where they would put them in the shelter because they couldn't do nothing with them. They might be out of control or something like that. Well, I wanted to, and a lot of guys wanted to change, and get them a forever home. That was our mission, to give them a forever home to where they can have love instead of possibly being put down, and through that, that gave me motivation to do it even more and learn more. And I overcame my fear of dogs and learning new things about them and behaviors, body language and whatnot. And I've learned so much over the years, and I just want to keep doing it and doing more of it.
fantastic! Thank you for
So,
that. I had no idea you used to be scared of dogs. I
yeah,
don't think you
yeah.
told me.
As a child, I was like, and uh, I, at one of the dogs that I had, the little Chiweenie story, was his name was Lucky. He was a little tiny little thing, and I actually taught him to jump up on my shoulder, and we would walk around, and he was like a little parrot. I would just get down, and I would say Lucky up, and he would jump up onto my shoulder. Everybody thought it was funny, and then and yeah, and I actually trained the service dog too for the Dogs Helping Heroes, and you helped guide me through that because that was my first experience with working with a service dog or any of the advanced commands and stuff like that. I've never done that before, and I learned a lot from you through going through that process and how to think outside the box and you know do everything in a systematical order to where the dog would understand you. And the dog's name was Lucy. She was a 3-year-old lab, golden lab, I believe she was, and she was overweight when we got her, and we ended up toning her down and getting her in shape, and eventually we got her to I taught her how to pull a woman out of a chair through using the vest for, mobility. We taught her what was it? The support command for stability and picking up dropped items. I mean, we taught her a lot. She was a rock star when we got done with her. And I owe that to you for being able to do that. And that meant a lot to me. So I appreciate everything, all the guidance you gave me, and it was awesome.
Well, thank you very much for that, my friend. And I tell you, we were talking about this earlier too. You guys taught me more than I have learned anywhere else because I come in with a concept. I have an idea of what it might look like to get a dog to pick up a dropped item, which I had been taught by my mentor. And then
Right.
you guys, all 24 of you, would start throwing out different thoughts and ideas. And then you would experiment and then you would just increase it tenfold, whatever I brought to you. So, like I mentioned, I owe you guys a lot too. Uh, so that was a Tornado Mom that we trained that dog for. That was
Right.
outside of Dogs Helping Heroes, but I think you did help me with another dog for Dogs Helping Heroes.
I
After,
believe it was Sarge the Shepherd.
yeah, that's what it
No,
was.
no, 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 no. My fault. Major.
Major. That's what it was.
Major.
Hold on. That's a different one too. Major went to a woman that had seizures. He ended up being a seizure alert dog.
Right.
And then there might have been Haley, the little German Shepherd female.
That wasn't me.
That wasn't you? Okay.
No.
We'll figure it out. I know
Yeah.
you helped me in there somewhere. But Dogs Helping Heroes, you guys superbly helped out with that because we had those rescue dogs from inside of Oldham County, and then they went to wounded veterans and first responders. They're still up and running, doing some great work. That would not have gotten
Right.
off the ground without your guys' help. So
Yeah,
awesome.
it was a big think tank.
Yeah, it was.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Uh, so earlier we talked a little bit about mission, and you mentioned something about helping people communicate better with their dogs, which is a topic I want to talk about. So tell me a little bit about helping people communicate with their dogs. What does that mean to you?
Well, it really means to me, like, a lot of people, they might not like their dogs to do certain things, or they might want to ask their dog in a certain way how to do something or do something in general, and they don't know how to get their point across. I mean, it's something as simple as like body language, just how to read your dog's body language and how the dog can read your body language and how you can communicate without even having to speak to the dog. By just like, say you're in the kitchen boiling water and you turn around and the dog is on the ground and you might trip over the dog and boil it, or you don't want that. So you want to teach the dog a little door control or space, personal space. So you walk into the dog, and naturally the dog will retreat a little bit, and you teach the dog personal space boundaries for safety, just through body language,
Right.
and
I
just
like
little
what
things like that.
I like what you said there. And the one word that I always want people to stand out in, I think you were right on the cusp of saying it, is body pressure. How to
Right,
cleanly put body pressure on your dog, not stepping on them, not tripping over top of
right,
them, sliding your feet on the floor.
right,
And then most importantly, as soon as your dog yields, those positive motivators, give them a treat,
right.
we pet
Good
them,
boy. Yeah.
girl. So what they
Right.
learn is, ooh, this is awesome. As soon as I get out of the way, I get good stuff.
Right.
And
And
then
that's how you communicate. Once you put them in the right direction and they understand that they're going to get those positive motivators, they're going to be more inclined to do that behavior more as a default behavior eventually.
correct. And hang on one second. So I like what you said there about getting them in the direction that you want them to go. So that was another thing to discuss is the difference between I'll just call the elephant in the room: positive reinforcement only, balanced training. What is the meat in the middle of
Right.
trainers that we could talk about? And I don't want to get too far into this, but the words and the thought process and the mindset that I have is to getting a dog to redirect from an unwanted behavior, in this instance, being in your way, to a wanted behavior, to being in a safe place. So,
Right.
can you think of an example? Let's say, I like what you said about boiling water because that's reality. But
Right.
what is a training scenario that's more safe in that instance that we could get a dog to redirect from possibly being in front of you and getting them out of the way, but a more natural kind of daily activity? Does anything stand out in your mind?
Um, you can teach it the back command with, just without verbal. I mean, just by pressure alone. Just, maybe you could be outside, the sneak away out of my way. You remember? And, just, I remember all that stuff. But just like, if you're doing a walking exercise, it's the same thing pretty much, except, you're utilizing a wall to create pressure because they can't get away from that pressure. So they have to yield, and they get the positive reinforcement through treats, physical touch, or verbal praise. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And
So what,
yeah, I mean, you can set that up in, door control. You can still make them yield to you to give them a weight command. And, if they're out too far and you want, just kind of walk into them and put that pressure on them,
right.
and that's, well, it's more safer that way too. There's not set up in a real life scenario where there's boiling water. No, we don't want to do that, you know? So,
Correct. So what you're talking about then is why training is important.
right,
Importance for safety, as we always talked about at
right,
Camp Canine. Number one big thing, big neon sign. Dave came in every day.
right.
Safety.
Safety, loose leash.
Yes. So the idea is training in the beginning does not entail sit, stay, down, come.
No,
It's more about those manners that we discuss.
right,
Follow the leader, yield to the leader.
right,
Now, switching gears a little bit, you and I were talking about helping people communicate with their dogs. We're talking a little bit about dog training here, but back to the people. When you and I get to people's homes, we don't know the people right away. We don't know the dogs. Maybe a conversation on the phone, but that's about it.
right.
So, what are some ways when you enter the house that you could build the relationship with the person? Let's talk about the owners first. How do we connect with the owners? How do we start to build relationship with those owners?
Well, it can be awkward sometimes, I mean, really, you don't know that person, they don't know you. You're coming into their territory, and so you got to kind of make it a little fun for them, depending on the situation. Uh, Example, I went to somebody's house like last weekend, and the guy had an aggressive puppy, shepherd, and he happened to be outside, and the dog was mauling him when
Oh,
I pulled up in the driveway. So, I mean, it just it's just one of those things where you don't have time to warm up to them and get, the like of, you got to go straight to business sometimes, you know what I mean? And then, I mean, but other times, you want to try to make them as comfortable as possible in their own home, maybe joke around with them a little bit, or, you know, a lot of it's the dog is the medium. That's the connection that you're going to have with the owner, because right as soon as you go in there, you're paying attention to the dog, but you're watching the owner as well. Like, how can we relate somehow? You know what I mean? And the relationship starts with that middle common ground is that dog right there. So there's always some kind of way that you can, you don't want to just show up and be like, oh, the weather's nice. And, you want to, that's kind of awkward, you want to make it a little fun by, making them want to engage with you more. And because engagement is important, just like with a dog, you want that focus. So you want to build their trust and focus onto you, just like you would with a dog.
right. And so with a dog, we've talked about this before, the motivators, the treats, the toys, the verbal praise, the petting. Don't
Right.
pet people. It's kind of awkward. That's in the six
It's
foot
kind of awkward.
too. You can't do that.
A little
But
bit.
one thing I try to do sometimes on the way in is I'll look at a vehicle, for example, and say, "Hey, I
Right.
noticed that you had a really nice Chevy out there. I used to have a Chevy. Hey, have you
Right.
guys, gone anywhere recently? Is it a holiday coming up like Easter or the big holiday
Right.
in Kentucky? Is it the Derby in a couple of weeks?
Right.
So it's trying to connect with those people and seeing
Right.
what really triggers them. So now
Right.
that we've got connection with the people, then we got to connect with the dog as well. And we talked about those motivators on the way in. Some certain things I always have with me. You probably have something similar, but I have treats with me. I also have a wubba. I love wubbas. The
Right.
sweet, the little tug toy, a little bit of a ball.
Right.
Uh, and so, can you speak to that? How do you connect with the dog when you enter the house?
Well, I'm the same way. I like to have treats on me. Maybe a Ziploc full of bologna, something to get their attention. I mean, you never know. I mean, if we're teaching manners, we might as well go all out, you know. But yeah, I like to have toys too, just whatever I can think of that might catch the dog's attention, because every dog is different. They might like a squeaky toy, they might have a high prey drive, or they might, food drive. They just depending on the drive that the dog might have, I want to be prepared so that I can get its attention onto me, you know.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, so we were talking about, so we know how to connect with the owners. We know how to connect with the dogs. You also talked a little bit about when we're connecting with the owners, some jokes every once in a while, which
Right. It
I'm
helps.
careful with my jokes, as some people know. But there are some great dog jokes that come up. What we were discussing earlier is one of my classics, which is when people get uncomfortable with their dogs in a kennel for a long time or a crate. Oh my God, I'm going 8 hours while my at work while my dog's in the kennel. That hurts my heart. Oh my gosh. And then the true reality is dogs don't have a concept of time. They don't realize if you're gone for 2 minutes or 20. So my
Right.
story always to them is if you put your dog and your spouse in a closet for 20 minutes, when you open that closet, who's happy to see you? It's only the dog. You haven't realized it's been that 20 minutes. So, is there something that comes up for you as you're kind of having fun, or maybe a story that you tell, maybe about your parent, or that story that you told, or not story, but the dog when I came in the prison program, that you taught him a trick when I came in? That's the way you connected with me that day. You remember what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah. The dog we was talking about was Shelby, and we was in class one day, and I took you to the side, and no, somebody pointed out that I taught her this amazing trick or something like that, and I'm like, hey Dave, you want to see something cool? And then I looked at Shelby, and she was sitting down, and I said, Shelby, do you like Dave? And she's like, I was like, wow. So yeah, any kind of verbal question that you asked her, it didn't matter what the question was, she would always respond with yes by
Excellent.
nodding her head. So that was pretty amazing for real. And I captured it by accident because I was teaching her how to say I love you. She would almost get it like oh, 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 and then she just got frustrated and went and as soon as she did that, I rewarded her right away and I captured that moment and she just kept doing it and kept doing it. And I changed it up from trying to teach her I love you to trying to teach her to nod. So and it just happened to work. You know, it was awesome. It was just it was pretty funny.
I love what you just said, man. Thank you for sharing that story because it
Yeah.
made my day by far. And it's those kinds of stories that I think help us connect with the owners, kind of lighten the mood during training, especially if you're getting into a little bit of a stressful moment. And those
Right.
lighthearted jokes or stories, etc. The one word you just said, super important, capturing.
Right.
So when a dog does a behavior, we can put a command or cue
Right.
to and then reward him. Cue, response,
Right.
reward is the
Right.
ultimate goal, but sometimes it's the response, then you add the cue and the reward.
Right.
One of the number one things that happened today, I was teaching a dog a place command, go lay down. Actually, it was on the end of the couch. They had one of those extended couches. And so she just jumps up there on her own. So I started attaching the word place to it, which is I want
Okay.
you to be down in that specific place. So sometimes in training, when a dog does something just naturally, then you can reward it.
Right.
In that same light, sometimes owners are better at a certain exercise with their dog or a certain movement. I will capture that and repeat it several times. Like
Okay.
some owners, if especially if they're not just versed in athleticism, like they didn't do athletics when they were younger or any sports or anything like that. Sometimes they don't have proprioception. They don't know where their body is in space. So they're not good at that, but they can take a treat and have the dog sit and then lie down and kind of do some simple
Right.
exercise. And so sometimes I will do that exercise before I get into the more complex walking. So I'm watching owners to see if I can capture something that they're good at or they really like, and then I can bleed into something that's more challenging.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Cool. So enough about dog owners and dog training specifically. Now I want to, well, still dog training, but I want to talk about the three things and possibly four that you and I were discussing earlier.
Okay.
Daily training regimens. Most people think I just need to teach my dog sit down, stay, come. That's what training exists from. You and I could go in length about manners, but I want to go a step even above that training philosophy and talk about exercising our dog's nose, our dog's mind, our dog's body. And then the one that you brought up to me, which I'm so grateful for, is their emotional systems.
Right.
That cuddle command, the affection that we go back and forth. Because there's a difference between me petting a dog, that is affectionate, me telling them that is affection, but that's more of a reward during training versus just having that good cuddle on top of me and have a good time. So that affection. So I kind of described the affection, but let's talk about physical exercise. So in your daily regimen with your customers, what do you suggest they do to physically exercise their dog? What are some options?
Well, I mean, obviously the structured walk, but if they like lately, it's been cold out. You know, a lot of people, not only are they busy, but they don't want to be out in 30 degree weather for a 45-minute walk, you know, if they don't have to be, you know. So, like that one video that I sent you from that one, my very first training session, professionally, they actually happen to have a treadmill in their basement. So I taught him to walk on the treadmill. It saved. She was amazed, and it it saved her from having to be out in the cold, and it gets the dog his exercise physically. It was a win-win. So I mean, and it just happened to be sitting down there in the basement, not even being used. Why not? You know, I mean, he was a high
That's
energy.
awesome, brother.
He needed that.
That's
So
good. You captured the environment on that one.
right, right.
That's cool, brother. I love it. And
Right.
so then from the physical exercise, how about the mental? And I realize everything takes mental, but if I'm saying I want to
Right.
try to isolate some mental exercises, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, that could be games. You can play a bunch of games, different games like finding things, playing fetch, even though it's just, I mean, that's kind of physical. I mean, but I mean, there's uh, different commands, exercising it mentally, teaching it new tasks. I
Yes,
mean,
that's what I'm talking about.
right.
So that stimulation, especially with like border collies and Aussies, you
Oh,
got to
yeah.
keep stimulated all the time.
Right.
Sit, stay, down, come. That's freaking kindergarten.
It's
They get
not
past
enough. Yeah.
so fast.
Right. We're talking running downs and all that stuff, you know?
Yes. So you're
Advanced
starting,
commands. Yes.
correct. So you're starting to switch things up, getting them focused on that treat
Right.
or lure for teaching. That
Right.
positive reinforcement only is superb for
Right.
teaching.
Right.
And so as I'm getting them to sit and down, that stand command or support that we used for service dogs, I love all of that. So getting their mind focused on different tasks, also in sequence. And we also talked a lot about back chaining, looking at a complex exercise and breaking it into simpler parts.
Right.
Oh, I won't tell that story right now, but remind me about back chaining and the young
Right.
boy that is paralyzed. We're teaching this dog to jump up in his chair, and climb underneath his arm and actually lift his arm. It is the
Right.
cutest thing in the world, man. So, so those mental exercises. One other thing we discussed, their dogs are always using their nose, but what are some things you said it a minute ago? It's more nose oriented. It still uses, and these all overlap, and I get that. There are physical
Right.
elements in mental and nose. But if I were going to exercise my dog's nose only, which means he can't see what I'm doing, what are some thoughts that you have about exercising their nose?
Scent training. I mean, I've done it before with the one dog that I taught that what was his name? He was bad. I mean, he was really bad. I made him a frisbee dog, but I taught him how to find keys. I taught him how to find different things through scent. So, seeking different items. If you going to find your keys, your remote, anything, your phone. You can teach your dog to find these things, and it's nose stimulate. And
Excellent. And so exercising their nose,
right,
exercising their mind, getting them to
right,
focus, exercising their body, that physical retrieve or just out for a run. There's not a whole lot of
right.
thought, just go. And then that affection.
Yeah,
And that affection, I want to talk about one other thing. We've talked about four major motivators: the treats, the physical praise, the verbal praise, and then also toys. But there's another one, which
yeah,
is removal of pressure.
right.
So what that means to me is if I'm on that, my dog's on that long down stay, and I want to reward them, the ultimate reward. You're done. Woohoo!
Right. The
It's kind of
release. Yeah.
you and I getting off a day at work. We think
Yeah.
actually we don't really work for a living, do we? We just play with dogs and have fun with people. But the idea is when it's all done, that is a great reward system as
Right.
well. Now we could talk a lot about that too. But
Right.
um, any last thoughts on those uh, four things: the exercise, their nose, their body, their mind, and then that affection? Anything else really stand out for you in that?
I really love that. I like all four of those, and I really cannot, on the top of my head, think of another one that would really top those. I mean, but if I ever do, I'll surely let you know.
Cool.
But that's
Okay,
good.
great.
That's awesome right there. I like that.
Good. That'll be a great discussion for some other time. Well, tell me, my friend, how can we find you? You have a YouTube channel that you're actually renaming that I will link in the bottom below.
Right.
You know what we didn't say? What area do you live?
I actually live in Kane County, Illinois right now, and I work up in Northbrook, but that's about an hour away from where I live. And I do some other side things around the area. So uh, I live in Burlington is the town name. So Burlington, Illinois.
How far are
So
you from Chicago?
I'm about an hour drive from downtown.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm
you're
about
up
an
in,
hour west. So
all right. So you're up in the Chicago area. So anybody that
right,
might catch this video up in the Chicago area, seek out Steve Cullen here. I'll put his website in the, or not website, but YouTube channel in the description below. I'm Dave the Dog Man. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and a little bit of TikTok. That's kind of growing. But you can also find me at davethedogman.com. Please, everybody, if you have any questions, send us some messages. Steve and I would love to get back to you, keep this communication going. Our mission here is to help other trainers also become better trainers of owners and of dogs, because a lot of times dog trainers are really good with the dogs, but if they don't have enough owner experience, these little nuances that we were talking about today on how to connect with owners really can hopefully help you become better trainers, which in turn help the owners train their dogs, and the dogs can be better citizens all the way around. So thank you all for your time. I'm Dave the Dog Man. Keep a loose leash. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, Steve, for your time,
all
bro.
right. Thank you. It's been an honor.